Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into something that so many of us experience but don't always talk about: spiritual dryness. You know, that feeling of burnout. We're going to explore some really timeless wisdom to figure out why this happens and, maybe surprisingly, how it can actually be a secret path to a faith that's deeper and stronger than ever before. So let me just ask you this right out of the gate. Have you ever felt like you've just hit a complete wall in your spiritual life? Like you're trying, you're doing the things you're supposed to do, but that connection, that spark you used to feel, it's just gone. It is such a frustrating place to be, but as we're about to see, it might just be the very beginning of a really profound journey.
So, where does this journey start? Well, our source material has a great name for it: the spiritual desert. It's that moment when your inner world, which used to feel so full of life, suddenly feels, well, empty and dry. Let's take a look at just how jarring that contrast can be.
Does this little comparison here hit home at all? On one side, you've got the past, right? The wonderful experiences, the spiritual highs, that feeling of an easy, effortless connection. But then you look at the present, and it's just this feeling of dryness. It feels clumsy to even talk about your faith, and sometimes it's even hard to think about God at all. That shift can be so disorienting. Wow, this quote just captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? It's like your prayers are just hitting a brass ceiling and bouncing right back. And that inner well of comfort that you used to be able to go to, it's completely run dry. Even your own thoughts don't give you any peace. It's a true feeling of desolation. And here's a little more of what that can feel like on the inside. God feels miles away. Your mind might just be flooded with all these intrusive thoughts: pride, anger, a ton of confusion. And that, of course, leads to this deep sense of feeling unworthy. The very spiritual things that used to bring you so much joy now just feel tasteless. But here's the most important thing to hear right now: don't panic. This is often the very beginning of a kind of deep cleaning process. Okay, so if this is a process, what in the world is the purpose? And that brings us to a huge idea: seeing this suffering as a refining tool. What if this incredibly painful time wasn't some kind of punishment, but actually a tool being used to shape you? Our source uses a really powerful metaphor for this: a sharp file. Now think about that. A file is abrasive, right? It scrapes, it grinds. But what's its purpose? It's to smooth away all the rough edges, the imperfections. In exactly the same way, these difficult times can work on our souls, filing away the pride and the ambition that maybe we couldn't even see in ourselves. So how does this actually play out? It's kind of like a three-step process. First, the difficulties come along and they expose our hidden pride, our secret self-love. We finally see our own limits crystal clear. Second, that leads to being humbled because we realize just how little we're actually in control of. And finally, that's the purification itself. It's like being refined, where all the junk gets burned away and what's left behind is stronger and so much more valuable. Okay, this is a huge question, isn't it? It's one thing to talk about these abstract trials, but so often our pain comes directly from what other people do to us. How does that fit into this whole refining idea? You know, the perspective on this is pretty fascinating. It suggests we kind of split the situation into two separate things. On the one hand, yeah, there's what the other person did, their mistake, their sin. But on the other hand, there's your lesson, your opportunity. The idea is that even their negative actions can be used as a chance for you to grow, to build a kind of patience and strength you just wouldn't have otherwise. All right, now we're going to shift our focus a bit. We've talked about the external stuff, but a lot of the time, the biggest, toughest challenges are happening right inside our own heads. And that brings us to section 3, the battle for your mind. I just love this quote because it's so backward, but it's so true. What could that possibly mean? It's pointing to the fact that the most dangerous temptations aren't the big, obvious ones. Nope, the real test is way more subtle. It sneaks up on us when we think we're doing great and everything is perfectly fine. And here is that subtle trap right here. It's the ambition to become more spiritual. I mean, that sounds like a good thing, right? But the warning here is that if our motivation is to get some kind of spiritual status for ourselves, to feel that sense of personal greatness, we've completely missed the point. This journey is supposed to be for God, not for our own ego. So we've kind of diagnosed the problem. We've reframed its purpose, which of course leads to the big practical question: how do you actually walk through it? What are the concrete things we can do when we're stuck in this spiritual desert? Well, the very first step is to redefine what prayer even is. Over here on the left, we've got what we could call false prayer. It's all about chasing good feelings or trying to understand everything with our intellect. But on the right, that's true prayer. It's simply an act of pure faith. It's just quietly waiting. It's a complete shift away from trying to figure it all out and instead just turning yourself towards God no matter how you feel. Okay, this is so practical and helpful for one of the biggest frustrations, the wandering mind. Let's just walk through it. Step 1, you just notice your thoughts have drifted off. Step 2, and this is the most important part, you do not get frustrated. Don't start analyzing why you got distracted. Step 3, you just gently, quietly turn your mind back to God. And step 4, you just repeat as many times as you need to without any judgment. The goal here is not perfection, it is all about persistence. And that persistence, it is everything. The story of Jacob wrestling with the angel all night is such a powerful image for this. He refused to let go, even when it was painful, even when he was exhausted. And it was only after that long, hard night of struggle that he got his blessing. The message is pretty clear, just hold on. The breakthrough always comes after the fight. Which brings us to our final section. After all of this difficulty, all this wrestling, what's the result? What's the fruit that can possibly grow in this barren desert? What makes this whole difficult journey worth it? And here is the payoff. The fruit of this whole struggle includes some really profound spiritual gains. You actually stop trusting your own up and down nature. You gain a deep sense of God's greatness. Your faith isn't passive anymore. It becomes active and resilient. And ultimately, you are held more securely in that relationship than you ever were before. And this right here is the ultimate takeaway. The goal is not to get back to how things used to be. It's not about recapturing those old spiritual highs. The real prize is something way more valuable. A deep, quiet, unshakable trust. It's a faith that doesn't depend on feelings anymore, but is rooted in a reality that's so much bigger than you are. So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if you just totally reframed how you look at hardship? What if those things that you see as your biggest problems, your most painful struggles, what if they're actually your most important assignments, designed specifically to shape you into the person you are truly meant to become?
For more spiritual resources, visit lokaken.ai.